Mario Cuomo was at peace with who he was and how he saw the world. This gave him a great strength and made him anything but a typical politician.
Today, Governor Cuomo and dignitaries from both sides of the aisle honored the life and legacy of New York's three-term governor, Mario Cuomo. Funeral services for Cuomo held today in Manhattan, and tonight, President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and others, including superstar Billy Joel, they spoke to RFL about the man who the governor called anything but a typical politician. And despite some political challenges, the House has reelected John Boehner to serve as Speaker of the House for a third term. This is a Republican-led Congress prepares to take up key issues challenging the Obama administration. Plus a little baseball. The 2015 Baseball Hall of Fame announced. We're going to tell you who made the cut this time around. We'll also dive into the debate still going over steroids. Should players who have used PEDs or even thought to have used PEDs be eligible to make it into the hallowed Hall of Fame? Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French and thank you so much for joining us. And tonight we start in Manhattan, where today mourners came out to St. Ignatius Loyola Church on Manhattan's Upper East Side to pay their final respects to New York's three-term governor Mario Cuomo. His son, Governor Andrew Cuomo, eulogized his father, calling him a leader whose politics were part and parcel of his beliefs, not strategies for pleasing people.
He didn't love the day-to-day management of government. The tedium and the absurdity of the bureaucracy was mind-numbing for him. Nor did he appreciate the political back and forth and the posturing with the legislature. As governor, he was criticized by the right as the icon for the left. He was criticized by the zealots on the left because his lofty rhetoric couldn't match the program reality of his government. We commiserated. We called it the curse of the executive. No understanding or appreciation of the economic reality of needing to balance a budget or having to get the votes from a Republican Senate, no matter how pleasant a task that is, Dean. My father always had a sweetness, but it grew over the years, much as a fine wine turns into a brandy. I, however, remember his younger years, and sweetness is not the first word that would come to mind. Make no mistake, Mario Cuomo was a tenacious, competitive, incredibly strong man. He was impatient with the bureaucracy, unrelenting in the face of bigotry, uncompromising in remedying injustice. And he was really, really, really tough.
Now, Mario Cuomo died of heart failure at his home on New Year's Day. And today, Bill and Hillary Clinton, among the many mourners who came to pay their respects, and they spoke exclusively with their own Dominic Carter, who was there today on a very cold, but I would say we all know, who Andrew Cuomo is, or as much as we have a window into him. I thought it was a really revealing and honest eulogy about his father in many ways. And I at the end, there was a standing O, and I really thought he gave a window into his father, their relationship, and so much more. And I know you spoke to mourners afterwards, and to a person, they all thought that it really spoke to who his dad was.
Richard, it was an emotional Andrew Cuomo, and Andrew Cuomo we're not used to, frankly, to seeing in public. The former first couple were among the dignitaries remembering Mario Cuomo today and talked to us about his legacy. With snow falling and state troopers standing at attention, it was his final farewell. What is Mr. Cuomo's legacy? Question for you, Mr. President. Question for you, First Lady and Senator.
You go first.
Well, it was a legacy of service that was imbued with faith and a sense that those of us who are blessed have to give back. He never forgot that he was put on this earth for a purpose larger than his own life, and that came across so beautifully in the Mass today. And Governor Cuomo, Andrew's remarks just embodied the extraordinary life that Mario Cuomo lived, and it's an example to everyone.
Mr. President?
The important thing for me, particularly with this debate that's been going on in our country now for 30-some years, is that Cuomo's life embodied his values of work and family and faith. But he believed that everybody deserved the same life chances he had, and that meant we needed a strong community. So his whole view of being in public service and government was to make the community stronger so everybody would have the same chances he did. And you got that in all of its wonder here.
Billy Joe, what made you come to the funeral today?
Mario Cuomo. He's a great governor of New York. I love this state. He was very good for our state.
What is his legacy?
His legacy is that it was a better state after he was governor than it was before.
And that sentiment seemed to be expressed by everyone here at the Park Avenue funeral. And Richard, it was that passion that we heard over and over from the mourners today that Mr. Cuomo brought to the job.
And I want to bring in our panel right now to speak to that. Jessica Prout, Republican strategist and PR expert with the November team. Jessica, recently a spokeswoman for the Astorino gubernatorial campaign. Phil Reisman, columnist for the Journal News and lowhud.com, and generally considered, obviously, the paper of record in both Westchester and Rockland County. And Andrew Whitman, senior political correspondent as well, joining us. And listen, you cover enough of these, you can almost write it to a certain degree, but Jessica, you know, when Andrew was talking to his dad, he talked about how theirs wasn't a typical father-son relationship, not just because the two of them were governors, but you know how it was combative, and it was they were combating about ideas and about policy and about all the father-son stuff that goes into it. I was struck that Andrew said, you know what, I should have came back for my dad's fourth run at governor. I should have been there for it. He showed some vulnerabilities. He also talked about his dad's failings as governor and stuff that he didn't get through, and then he still left open-ended about the races that never were for president or becoming Supreme Court justice. But I thought overall, and he called him Pop at the end, that there was. It started as a political, but then it became a very personal address at the end. And I think a lot of people connected to it from the 70s all the way through today, and that arc where you have governors of 5 different terms speaking and being remembered.
And well, to what Dominic was saying earlier, it was such a rare glimpse into that personal side of him that you don't see. You know, they both had the reputation for being hard-charging and tough, but rarely do you see him, you know, even speak about his family and from a more emotional and personal standpoint. So I did think it was really touching. The big takeaway seems to be from all the press is that it was the best speech of his political career to date. So that I think will certainly, you know, he's going to get a little gravitas with this going into this legislative session. People are remembering those old times, and you know, it's. Yep. I think it's a nice thing that everyone came together today to celebrate him.
Anything a second to you, Andrew?
I mean, it didn't feel so much a eulogy of a son remembering his father. It also felt like somebody who was a fan of the former governor and an admirer of the former governor. And it wasn't just, you know, familial and personal stuff. It was like a look behind the curtain a little bit. And you know, you wonder if we learned some lessons today that might help us better view Andrew Cuomo as he goes forward.
And you know, Phil, he spoke at length about his father was a product of immigrant parents, right. And that his dad was proud of being from the outer boroughs. He was a Queens guy. He was there was Brooklyn roots there. He wasn't a Manhattan guy. Maybe at the end, you know, he settled in Sutton Place. But before that, that's where his roots were, and that's where he was. And repeatedly came back to that and took pride in it. It wasn't just something that made him, but also something that, you know, he wanted people to know that's who he was.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You know how in obituaries, you notice that things happen in threes, you know,
yeah.
And we had a series of people pass this past week. Bess Meyerson, or actually it was December 14th, but we only found out about it yesterday, or the New York Times did anyhow. Brooke, Senator Brooke. They were all firsts in different ways. Mario Cuomo was a first, you know, and unique as an Italian, son of an Italian immigrants. And but I thought that was interesting about the Andrew Cuomo eulogy was the words competitive and tough. And I think, you know, you talk about gravitas coming forward for Andrew. This has to be the competitive. They were competitive with each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
he spoke about that, not to interrupt you, but
yeah,
he went into detail about the basketball games that got so
right
heated in there that they had to go to the cops to basically referee the games, and then they had to go to some more.
Just watch The Great Santini, and you can get the sense of the father overshadowing the son and the tension that went on. It's not saying they didn't love each other, but I got to believe this is going to be a major lift off Andrew Cuomo's back.
And
as much as he loved his father.
And you got it. He laid it out that it was complicated, but he said at the end, he was his best friend. Yeah. He was his confidant, and he was his hero. So we're going to talk more about this. And as we said, Dominic, he spoke to a bunch of folks down there, including when we come back, we'll hear from folks like Charlie Rose and those who worked in the campaigns and covered the races for more than 40 years in New York. We'll hear from those folks as well. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this.